The Walking Dead has been making people afraid of zombies for 15 years, and not because of the gore. Because every single time you think you've figured out the rules, the show breaks them. Every survivor who learned to outsmart a herd, every rule they established, every weakness they thought they understood. The dead keep changing. And the worst ones aren't the ones that shamble. They're the ones that run, think, and literally melt your skin off. That's why today, I'm breaking down every major Walking Dead variant from the most unsettling to the most terrifying thing the franchise has ever put on screen, starting with the ones who made every single Walker encounter feel like it could be your last. The Whisperers. On the surface, the Whisperers aren't a Walker variant at all. And that's exactly what makes them so terrifying. Before you dismiss them, hear me out. A group of survivors who wear tanned human Walker skin masks and move inside massive herds undetected. They live among the dead. They eat among the dead. They raise their children among the dead. And the Walkers don't know the difference. The surface explanation is that they just use the old guts trick Rick discovered back in season 1. Smear some Walker innards on yourself. Move slowly. The dead ignore you. Cool trick. Problem solved. But here's where it gets dark. The Whisperers didn't do it once to escape. They built an entire civilization around it. Alpha, their leader, turned it into a religion. Her followers wore dried Walker skin masks every day. No washing them off, no safe house, no separation from the herd. Just permanent, constant immersion in death. And their real weapon wasn't the disguise. It was herd control. By walking at the front of a herd moving in a determined direction, they could steer tens of thousands of walkers like a living weapon. Michonne compared it to a nuclear bomb. The Pike Border proved it. Season 9, Episode 15. 10 major characters, decapitated, their heads mounted on wooden stakes as a border warning. Every single one. A speaking character. People the audience had followed for seasons. But if you think that's dark, wait until the show brought back something it spent a decade pretending didn't exist. Evolved variants. For 11 seasons, the show told you one thing about walkers. They're slow, they're dumb, they're dangerous in numbers, but alone, a single walker is manageable. You push it, you stab it, you move on. That's the deal. Season 11 broke the deal. In episode 19, aptly titled Variant, Aaron, Jerry, Lydia, and Elijah encounter a group of walkers at an abandoned Renaissance fair behaving in ways that make zero sense. One picks up a rock and uses it as a weapon. Another opens a door. One scales a wall with deliberate, calculated movement. And when Aaron pins one to the ground and tries to rip off what he assumes is a Whisperer mask, the entire face peels off. It's not a mask. It's just a face. These are genuine walkers, with apparent problem-solving ability. Here's the thing. This wasn't actually new. Back in Season 1, under original showrunner Frank Darabont, walkers were smart. Teddy Bear Girl picked up her stuffed animal from the ground, Jenny Jones turned a doorknob and tried to get back into her own home. Walkers jogged. Walkers climbed fences. Then Darabont was fired. The new team reverted to slow, comic-style walkers, and smart zombies vanished for an entire decade. The Season 11 finale brought it back deliberately. A variant smashes through hospital glass with a rock, directly mirroring that Season 1 walker breaking department store windows in Atlanta. Showrunner Angela Kang explained it as regional. It's almost like it was a variant that just was regional. Variants had always existed, just never encountered by the main group after they left Atlanta. But here's where it gets complicated. Chief Content Officer Scott Gimple refused to even call them smart. His exact words, "I wouldn't co-sign on the word smart for the walkers. There's something going on there. Something going on there." That's the official explanation for walkers opening doors. The fan reaction was genuinely mixed. Exciting concept, criminally underdeveloped. Collider called it mainly a way to set up the spin-offs. And honestly, looking at what came next, they weren't wrong, because the spin-offs took the variant concept and did things with it that the main show never had the nerve to try. The Walker King. Dead City took everything you knew about walkers and asked one genuinely disgusting question. What happens when they don't stay separate? Manhattan had been sealed off since the outbreak. No survivors clearing the streets, no military burns, no organized anything. Just years of walkers packed into an island with nowhere to go, slowly fusing with their environment. The sewers beneath the city became something out of a nightmare, filled with methane gas, industrial sludge, and heat that turned everything organic into something unrecognizable. And out of that, something built itself. The Walker King first appeared in Season 1, Episode 5 of Dead City, Stories We Tell Ourselves. It wasn't created by scientists. Nobody engineered it. It was the result of multiple walkers stumbling through each other in confined, superheated sludge, bodies melting and merging until they literally could not come apart. Multiple heads, multiple sets of arms, a single moving mass of fused, rotting flesh that functioned as one organism. Showrunner Eli Journet described the creative origin simply. What if a walker kind of stepped through one walker, and then another walker stuck its head through that walker? The answer to that question weighs several hundred pounds and cannot be killed with a single headshot. But here's here's where it gets weirder. Maggie doesn't fight the Walker King in a clear-headed, tactical way. The methane flooding the sewers causes vivid hallucinations in living humans, so she's destroying each head individually while her perception of reality is actively collapsing around her. She can barely tell what's real and what the gas is making her see. Every head has to come off separately, and the whole time, the thing just keeps coming. The Walker King is important for a specific reason that goes beyond spectacle. Every other variant in this video has some kind of biological or scientific explanation. The burners came from a lab, the ampers came from a serum. Even the evolved variants connect back to the French research arc. The Walker King came from nothing but time, heat, and proximity. It's what happens when you leave walkers completely alone long enough, and Dead City is suggesting Manhattan is full of things that have been left completely alone for a very long time. But environmental mutation is one thing. What happens when an actual scientist decides to make walkers worse on purpose? Radioactive walkers. Most walker variants in this franchise are dangerous because of what they can do to you directly. They bite, they burn, they crush. The radioactive walkers from Fear the Walking Dead are dangerous in a completely different way. You can kill one perfectly, cleanly, exactly right, and still die because of it. That changes everything. Fear the Walking Dead Season 5 introduced them after the Lone Star nuclear plant melted down in Texas. The walkers in the surrounding area absorbed enough radiation that their blood became actively lethal to anyone who came into contact with it. Not bite lethal, radiation lethal, slow, invisible, and permanent. Morgan found out the hard way. He impaled one with his staff. Standard kill, clean execution. The staff was contaminated beyond recovery. He had to abandon it on the spot. A weapon he'd carried across multiple shows, multiple seasons gone because of a single walker encounter that he technically won. But here's where it gets genuinely horrifying. Seasons 6 and 7 escalated this by an order of magnitude. Nuclear warheads were detonated across Texas. Not one, multiple. The resulting walkers weren't just irradiated, they were physically transformed by the blasts, burnt on one side and completely intact on the other. Walking proof of exactly where the blast radius ended and where survival began, frozen permanently in the moment of detonation. The nuclear crater that formed became filled entirely with these walkers, a mass grave that kept moving, and the rules for fighting them broke completely. Every melee kill risked contamination. Every splash of blood was a potential death sentence that wouldn't show symptoms for days. Survivors had to rethink every single engagement from scratch. Zero close quarters combat. Zero improvised weapons that couldn't be sanitized. Zero mistakes. Standard walkers kill you fast. You see it coming. You feel it immediately. Radioactive walkers kill you slowly, quietly, and you might not even realize it happened until it's already too late to do anything about it. The show never fully explored the implications of what a radioactive herd at scale would actually mean for long-term survival in that region. That's a genuine criticism, but what it did establish was a variant type that punishes success. You can do everything right and still lose. That specific kind of horror, where competence isn't protection, is exactly what the franchise's scariest moments are built on. And speaking of competence not being protection, nothing in this franchise makes experienced survivors feel more helpless than what France invented. Burners. France broke the most fundamental rule of walker combat, the rule that every single survivor across 15 years of this franchise built their entire fighting style around. You can touch them. That's it. That's the rule. You can grab a walker, push it, shove it into a wall, hold it at arm's length while you find a blade. Physical contact is manageable. Painful sometimes, dangerous always, but manageable. The burners from Daryl Dixon made physical contact with a walker a death sentence. Their blood is corrosive acid. A single touch sizzles human skin on contact. On you, you're not dealing with a bite on you, you're not dealing with a bite anymore. You're dealing with a chemical burn that needs to be cauterized immediately, or the damage keeps spreading. Daryl found this out in the first episode. His arm was burned badly enough that Sister Isabel treated the wound exactly like a bite. Same urgency, same finality in her expression. Because in France, a burn from a burner carries the same psychological weight as a bite does back home. Here's where it gets complicated. The burners weren't a natural mutation. According to Remy in Season 2, they were a failed experiment by the pouvoir des vivants, the power of the living, that got loose and spread into the general walker population. Someone in a lab deliberately created a walker variant whose body chemistry was corrosive, and then lost control of it. SFX designer Greg Nicotero cited David Cronenberg's scanners as the visual inspiration for their design, aiming for something that looked like the body was destroying itself from the inside out. The boiling veins are literal. The chemistry of the infection has turned the body's own fluids into something caustic. But Daryl being Daryl, he figured out how to use them. In episode 3 of season 1, he grabbed a burner and used its corrosive body to dissolve the vines blocking a gate, weaponizing the thing that was trying to kill him. That's the detail that sticks, because it tells you everything about how dangerous burners actually are. The solution to a locked gate in France isn't a tool or a key. It's carefully maneuvering a walker whose blood melts organic matter toward the problem and hoping you don't touch it while you do it. Every combat trick, every grab, every push, every melee instinct built across years of survival. Zero of it works here, but as dangerous as burners are, at least they move like walkers. What France also created could run, the world beyond runner. Everything up to this point, the Whisperers, the evolved variants, the Walker King, the radioactive walkers, the burners, all of it traces back to a single 90-second scene that most casual Walking Dead fans have never even seen. The post-credits sequence at the end of World Beyond Season 2, a French laboratory. Walls spray-painted with the words, Les Morts sont nés ici. The dead were born here. A recording of Edwin Jenner plays. You remember Jenner, the CDC scientist from season 1 who told Rick the truth about the infection, then blew himself up. In the recording, he discusses variant cohorts reported in Europe and experiments using cardiac plaques as a host medium for steroidal therapies. Scientific language, that means one thing in plain terms. Someone in France was experimenting on the virus itself. Then an armed man shoots a French scientist and tells her, point blank, you started this. All the teams. Then you made it worse. She dies, and then she comes back in under 1 minute, not hours, not days, seconds. And here's where the entire franchise changes. She doesn't shamble. She doesn't lurch. She gets up, crosses the room at full running speed, and slams into a steel door hard enough to leave a dent. Then she appears to remember which door her killer exited through and moves toward it with purpose. That is a fast walker, with apparent memory retention. In a franchise that spent 11 seasons insisting walkers were slow and mindless, Scott Gimple publicly cautioned fans not to flatly believe everything spray-painted on the walls. But the Jenner recording is canon. The connection to the main show's Season 1 CDC arc is canon, and every variant introduced across every spin-off since this scene connects directly back to it. The burners came from French lab experiments. The ampers came from French lab experiments. The evolved variants that started appearing in the main show's final season connect to the broader variant cohort framework this scene established. This one scene is the load-bearing wall of the entire variant mythology, and the most important thing it confirmed is something the franchise had been quietly hinting at for years. The virus didn't just happen randomly, it was being studied, manipulated, and experimented on before the outbreak even ended. The scientists who were supposed to be finding a cure were creating something worse. Jenner knew. He had the data on variant cohorts before he blew up the CDC. He had reports from Europe describing exactly what would eventually become burners and ampers and runners. He knew, and he still hit the button. That detail alone reframes the entire first season of The Walking Dead in about 30 seconds of post-credits footage. But knowing where the variants came from is one thing. Actually surviving what France created at full power is something else entirely. Ampers. Everything else on this list is dangerous. The burners change the rules of physical combat. The evolved variants break a decade of established behavior. The Walker King is a nightmare born from geography, but the ampers are the only variant on this list that was deliberately designed, from scratch, by a scientist who understood exactly what he was creating and did it anyway. Dr. Henri Lafleur, a French researcher who believed the only way to neutralize walkers was to make some of them more powerful than the rest. His logic was that a supercharged walker would dominate and destroy standard ones, functioning as a kind of biological weapon that cleaned up its own category. An apex predator introduced to control the population beneath it. On paper, that's almost elegant. In practice, he created the single most dangerous thing in the entire Walking Dead universe. The Amper Serum was a cocktail of adrenaline and anabolic steroids injected directly into a walker. The results were immediate and catastrophic. Completely black eyes, pulsating black veins spreading visibly across the skin, and then movement. Not the lurching shuffle of a standard walker. Full running speed, enhanced strength, and the behavior that separates Ampers from every other variant on this list. They attack other walkers, not just humans, everything. A single Amper released into a herd doesn't join it. It tears it apart. Standard walkers don't register each other as threats, which is the entire biological foundation of how herds function. Ampers break that completely. One injection, released into a crowd of 10,000 walkers, and the herd destroys itself from the inside. Greg Nicotero designed their visual look as a direct tribute to Sam Raimi's Evil Dead. The blackened veins spreading from the injection site, the void dark eyes. Something that looks like the body is being consumed by whatever entered it. But here's the kicker. The serum only lasts 3 to 4 minutes before the Amper collapses, and some test subjects' heads exploded within 18 seconds of injection. LaFleur's weapon had a timer on it, and the timer wasn't always reliable. Showrunner David Zabel was explicit about the creative decision. It was determined that they can't just be naturally occurring because that felt like a violation of the rules. The limitation matters because it makes ampers terrifying in a specific tactical way. You can wait one out, theoretically. If you can survive 3 to 4 minutes of something running at full speed with the strength to tear other walkers apart, you might be okay. That's the only comfort the show offers. Daryl eventually figured out how to weaponize them. Amper darts turned on herds, letting the serum do the work from a distance. Carol killed Jeanette by shooting her directly with the serum, watching her veins go black before the hemorrhaging started. The most dangerous thing LaFleur ever made became a weapon in the hands of a man from Georgia who just wanted to go home. But even ampers have a time limit. The next variant on this list has no limits at all. Bioluminescent walkers. Every variant on this list is terrifying for a reason you can explain. The Whisperers weaponized herds. The evolved variants broke a decade of behavioral rules. The radioactive walkers punish success. The Burners eliminate physical contact as an option. The Ampers run, attack everything, and tear herds apart from the inside. The bioluminescent walkers from the Daryl Dixon Season 2 finale are terrifying for a reason that's almost impossible to articulate. They're not more dangerous than Ampers. They can't melt your skin like Burners. They don't steer a nuclear bomb of a herd like the Whisperers. They glow in the dark. And somehow, that is the most deeply wrong thing this franchise has ever put on screen. The Channel Tunnel. The channel connecting France to England, completely sealed since the outbreak. Nobody has been inside it for years. What's grown in there in the dark, untouched and undisturbed, is something the show's own characters cannot process in real time. Luminescent mold and organisms feeding on the dead have colonized the walkers inside the tunnel so completely that the walkers themselves emit cold blue-green light in the absolute darkness. Director Daniel Percival described the practical effect. LED lights molded directly into the suits, pill lights placed inside the walkers' mouths so they glow from within, not a post-production effect. Literal light sources built into the bodies. But here's where it gets genuinely disorienting. The tunnel is filled with bat guano, and the guano is psychoactive. Anyone breathing the air inside the tunnel starts hallucinating, vivid, convincing, completely indistinguishable from reality. So Daryl is navigating absolute darkness, lit only by glowing walkers, while his own perception of what's real actively breaks down around him. There is zero tactical footing in that environment. Zero. Every survival instinct built across the entire show assumes you can trust your eyes. In the tunnel, your eyes are the enemy. The bioluminescent walkers aren't the deadliest variant in the franchise, but they represent something the other variants don't. They represent what happens at the absolute end of the variant mythology's logic. France created the virus. France's experiments made it worse. The Burners and Ampers and Runners all came from deliberate human interference. But the bioluminescent walkers came from nothing but time and darkness and the natural world filling a vacuum that humans left behind. Nobody made them. Nobody engineered them. The tunnel was sealed. The lights went out, and over years, something beautiful and horrifying grew in there on its own. The Walking Dead spent 15 years asking what humanity becomes when civilization collapses. The variants spent those same 15 years asking a quieter, darker question underneath it. What does the infection become when you leave it alone long enough? The Whisperers answered it one way. The Walker King answered it another. The bioluminescent walkers, glowing cold blue-green in the dark of a sealed tunnel a mile beneath the English Channel, answered it in a way that has absolutely zero comfort in it. The dead were born in France, and in the dark, they learned to shine. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.